Welcome to Key Trends Spot, your daily dose of what's hot, what's viral, and what's next. From K-pop to culture, we spot the trends so you don't miss a beat. In the vast and glittering world of K-pop, there are countless moments that slip past the eyes of many, moments so subtle and fleeting that they might not even make the headlines. Yet sometimes it is precisely these moments that reveal the most about someone's true character. One such incident unfolded during a grand award ceremony where, under the blinding lights and deafening cheers, Kim Taehyung, better known as V of BTS, reminded everyone that kindness does not need a stage. It only needs a heart. The atmosphere inside the venue was electrifying. Idols from different generations of K-pop sat side by side, sharing the same space, the same spotlight, and the same nervous excitement. It was a night meant for performances, victories, and celebrations, but also for those candid exchanges that fans love to re-watch again and again. While most eyes were glued to the performers or to the main events, Taehyung noticed something that others had missed. Among the groups seated nearby was ᴜᵱᵏᵉ, a team with its own remarkable journey of resilience and survival in the industry. But there was a small problem. There weren't enough chairs for everyone in their group. It was the kind of situation that might leave idols feeling awkward, unsure of where to sit, and perhaps even slightly embarrassed in front of the cameras, while others might have simply ignored it, too busy chatting, clapping, or basking in the glamour of the night. Taehyung's eyes quickly landed on the missing seat. It was a detail most wouldn't think twice about, but to him, it was impossible to overlook. In his world, no one should be left standing when everyone else was seated comfortably. Without hesitation, Taehyung rose from his own spot. It wasn't dramatic or showy. In fact, it was so natural that many people barely noticed until he was already moving. With quiet determination, he reached out, grabbed an extra chair, and carried it over to the newest members so they could sit comfortably like everyone else. The gesture lasted only a few seconds, but to those who caught it, including Jimin, it felt monumental. It wasn't just about a piece of furniture being shifted across the floor. It was about empathy, awareness, and the kind of thoughtful heart that sees beyond oneself in the middle of chaos. Jimin had been sitting nearby, his eyes instinctively following Taehyung's every move. As someone who had known him since their earliest trainee days, he recognized this action for what it was: another small but profound reminder of Taehyung's true nature. His lips curled into a smile, one that ARMY around the world would later describe as radiant. To the audience watching at home, the moment might have looked sweet and simple. But for Jimin, it was layered with years of memories. He thought about how Taehyung had always been like this, quick to share his food, eager to comfort a friend, always aware of when someone was left out or uncomfortable. Fame and success had never changed that boy from Daegu, who noticed the little things. As ᴜᵱᵏ settled into their chairs, visibly relieved and grateful, Jimin felt his chest warm with admiration. There was pride there, too, the kind of pride that comes not from seeing your friend win trophies, but from witnessing them embody the kind of human being you've always believed them to be. Amid the roaring audience and flashing lights, Jimin experienced a quiet stillness. It was as if the entire show faded into the background, leaving only Taehyung's act of kindness in focus. He realized that sometimes the truest beauty of a person is revealed not in their grand performances, but in the smallest, most unnoticed actions. His smile deepened, and his eyes sparkled as they lingered on Taehyung. He wanted to laugh because he knew Taehyung would never see this as a big deal. In fact, he could already imagine his best friend shrugging and brushing it off with that boxy grin of his. Still, for Jimin, it was impossible to ignore. He He leaned slightly forward, his gaze softening, as if trying to memorize this moment in his heart. "That's just so him," he thought silently, almost chuckling at how consistent Taehyung always was in these little gestures. When their eyes met briefly, Taehyung grinned like he always did, a playful expression that seemed to say, "What? It's nothing." But Jimin's response was a smile that held something much deeper than amusement. It carried fondness, admiration, and an unspoken message of, "I see you, and I'm proud." The rest of the night unfolded in typical award show fashion, performances that wowed the crowd, acceptance speeches that drew applause, and celebrations that filled the air. But for Jimin, none of it compared to the quiet highlight that had already played out in front of him. Later, when BTS gathered backstage, away from the cameras and the crowd, Jimin couldn't resist bringing it up. In his usual teasing tone, he nudged Taehyung lightly and said, "Yeah, you really know how to steal attention, don't you? Even with something as simple as a chair." Taehyung laughed, brushing the comment aside like it was nothing. "They didn't have enough chairs. I just helped out. Really, it's no big deal." His words were casual, almost dismissive, but his sincerity was unmistakable. Jimin, however, only shook his head, still smiling in that way that said he knew better. "Maybe to you it's not a big deal," he replied softly, "but to them, and to me, it is." His voice carried a warmth that made Taehyung glance at him, slightly shy. There was a pause, just long enough for the weight of the moment to sink in. Taehyung looked away, embarrassed at being praised too directly. But Jimin reached out anyway, his hand gently squeezing Taehyung's shoulder in a wordless affirmation. That small squeeze carried more meaning than any long speech could. It said, "I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're my friend. And don't ever change." It was one of those quiet exchanges between them that needed no further explanation. As they rejoined the rest of their group, walking side by side, Jimin caught himself smiling yet again. He realized that this was what he cherished most about their bond, the ability to witness and celebrate each other's smallest acts, the ones that spoke volumes about who they truly were. For the world, the night might be remembered for its trophies and glittering performances. But for Jimin, it would always be the night of the chair, the night when a simple act of kindness became a personal highlight, etched into his heart forever. Because in the end, it isn't the grand gestures that define someone's character, but the quiet choices they make when no one is asking them to. And Jimin knew, deep down, that Taehyung's heart was far bigger than any stage they would ever stand on. That was the real award of the night.